I wanted to do a review on Complexity losing with a coach, a manager, to Glocks. But this game, I caught a bit of it live, and it was actually really interesting. And I saw some really, really solid retakes and kind of like 4v2s, 2v4 situations that I think are worth looking at. So we're here with Astralis versus Old Astralis, or Ex Astralis. But basically the entire Danish scene is Ex Astralis, so really we can think of it more like Old Astralis. But Falcons is a team that I think still hasn't quite found their footing in terms of they have some solid ideas and they do some things that I really like, but at the same time it seems like they're very often on different pages. And this is definitely a very interesting strat where they stacked 4B, 1 mid, and they go for the retake on A, but they don't get a single kill. Oh, man. Like, that is prime Falcons situation. You have a stack, it goes wrong on pistol, it goes completely wrong, and not only does it go wrong, the attempt to bring it back to something working, like that could get you anything or even a chance at the round, also goes horrifically wrong. I just checked, and Falcons have a 45% pistol round win rate now, which is a lot better than their old 28% I think they had for a little bit. I was thinking, like, wow, with the pistol round that goes that badly, maybe they just don't win pistols. Turns out they do. But still not that many. Anyways, that's probably, I feel like this is a kill you could say Jabby usually gets, because you have this slight advantage, right? As long as you have ambient occlusion, I think you need for this, because I think it's not technically a shadow. No, it's actually a shadow. Yeah, he's got an advantage and almost gets screwed up by the advantage. Sometimes I see that happen where you have this advantage and because you see the shadow, you start shooting and that actually screws everything up. But what I like from Astralis here is they don't like really panic trying to get this back. They still try and move in a similar direction because at a high level, these players aren't going to rotate. I want you to keep in mind, these players should not be rotating off of A because Astralis can go anywhere. However, I've noticed in like matchmaking, people rotate. Like, oh, my teammates got 3 kills on B. I better rotate B. It's like crazy, okay? But they shouldn't be rotating. Smoke from Stair. And now they've actually kind of got Falcons in an interesting position. So Falcons, you could argue actually that like Falcons, they probably want to abandon the site here, but the problem is that Snappy's kind of stuck. And so they're trying to support him, but Snappy's just not in a position where you can get, I mean, he's in a position where you can get a kill or two, but in trying to support him, I think they end up it ends up going quite poorly for them. Now, should they be supporting him? I think it's pretty natural to try and support him here. Magic blocking Madden probably doesn't help anyone's situation. And then a couple of nice shots from Astralis, you have to admit, turn it into a 2v2. And this is the round, one of the rounds that I really like, that is the reason I did this demo, is because Astralis do go silent here. They actually go quiet, they smoke off short, and I think Sunpayas might have seen Bro there, which would make a big difference, because in Astralis's mind, they're kind of trying to see like, okay, let's let them search for us here. Okay, he didn't see Bro. So he's thinking like, let's let them search for us here, and we're gonna see what's gonna happen, and hopefully we can start to like find them out in a second. So Stair actually does spot the player there. He spots Sunpayas coming through the smoke. Then and then Bro gets the kill. They're just, I really like the play there where they don't panic, they don't do anything crazy, they just delay for a little bit and force Falcons to look for information back, because Astralis could be going anywhere, and eventually they end up getting themselves the kills. Following round, this is basically just like a full-on anti-eco, it's just like USPs and stuff. Stair here goes for the spam. I think this spam, it's almost, I don't think this is necessarily the full intention, but one of the things it does, which is great when you have a player where device is it kind of baits the player to go for that walk across, thinking they might be able to catch someone that's not ready. And Stair kind of knows that he's baiting that a little bit, so he's ready to peek in afterwards. But what happens is device dies, and then he gives it a second, Jabby peeks in. You know, I think Astralis is playing some really clean Counter-Strike. And I don't know, I'm always really positive on teams that have like really good utility usage, seem to be playing pretty coordinated, and can kind of, you know, close out good advantage situations relatively regularly. The problem that Astralis has that I've seen in the games I've been watching is Well, first of all, and there's a comment that asked me to do this. Can you, like someone said, can you take a look at what Stown looks like in the group stage and what he looks like in the playoffs and what the differences are? Because, you know, it does seem statistically, I believe Stown it does struggle in the playoffs. But the problem is, I mean, that's it. It might just be that he shoots worse, right? And it's hard to make a video if that's the answer, right? It's like, oh, he just misses more shots. It's like, okay, well, it's hard to make a video on that. But in general, I think they play quite well. And when I look at like their loss to Mongols, I think Device is still kind of to some extent learning how to. I think it's tough, especially as an opper. You're not necessarily IGLing for that long. When you get into games where you play against kind of a tough team to play against, just in the way they kind of take control and you have to be actively calling very regularly, I think it's easy to lose your fragging ability. And especially when I look back at their game against Mongols, it felt like Device missed quite a few shots that he normally wouldn't because, you know, Mongols is a tough team to play against calling-wise. But 5v3 here, Magisk with the original kill in middle, then Snappy picks up 1. This feels like a great play, and it is a play that most people will go for, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if he doesn't get one there, the round actually pretty quickly turns into, you know, somewhat winnable for Astralis. Then into the 2v4, you have a very, very similar situation to the anti-eco, or to the eco actually we had from Falcons, where we had Snappy here, and we had 2 players moving over. Now, Madden's in a pretty good spot here. The 2 players are able to rotate over. Now, Dupree's got 12 health, so he either wants to be throwing utility here or he wants to be going in first. In this case, unlike Snappy, Madden doesn't get a kill because there's no smoke up. I believe with Snappy there was a smoke up. Madden, alternatively, he decides not to throw the smoke. He wants to hold on to it. I feel like in this case he should probably just toss the smoke. And if he tosses a smoke ramp, if he tosses a smoke ramp, I bet Magisk and Dupree are like free to be fighting here, right? Or do they get smoked off? They do get smoked off, but if there's a smoke ramp, then Dupree could come straight through here if he wanted, and he could be in a great spot. Yeah, Madden, I think, holds the smoke because he doesn't want them to know where he is, but then he gets hard cleared anyways, so it's like, well, you may as well have thrown that smoke. Then Magisk is just going to be able to get both of the final kills, so, I mean, still a good situation. Sometimes it does come down to the fragging, right? It was a bit of an opportunity into that round, I feel like, though, after that kill on a Madden. But, especially because Magisk only had, like, 70 health and Dupree had 12. Like, if Magisk dies there without getting a kill, that can go very wrong. But that's kind of the situations you're in sometimes, right? If your opponents just don't let you... Because Astralis didn't give them time to, like, pivot around the bomb site and, like, get into good positions. They attacked fairly quickly, preventing that exact play from happening. So here, interesting, because of the shot from Sunpius, it's like Device... Hold on, I want to see this from Device POV. So Device peeks this. He peeks it really, really narrow looking. Because sometimes people, like, sit there with a smoke out. He peeks it so narrow that the shot gets missed. And then Dupree, I was wondering exactly how the shadow works. I think the shadow only works if you're maybe on the top ledge or on the back wall. So I don't think Dupree has like a shadow advantage, but this is like a notable off angle. So you still have a pretty decent play here, especially because they're chasing the opper. But takes a few bullets to kill the first guy, which means the second guy is also, you know, it's hard to double up unless you kill the first guy, you know, relatively quickly, you know? So 2v4 in the afterplant, kind of historically one of the biggest fumbles. I believe it was at IEM Dallas. One of the biggest fumbles of the tournament really was the 2v. I think there was like a 2v4 and a 3v5, like a 4v2 and a 5v3. I think that Falcons lost on Anubis at IEM Dallas against G2, I believe it was. And that's kind of like historically. Those are the way I'm thinking about, like, Falcons in these clutches. But Magisk just cleans that one up, which is great. And then Snappy actually goes for the MP9. They don't have a ton of money. Well, they have a bit of money, but not a ton of money to work with. And Snappy's just ready to mow down some anti-ecos. Although getting tagged by Madden didn't help his situation at all. And they're actually going to be playing off of A here. So there was a lot of pressure B. So you can kind of get away with playing off of A in that situation. There was lots of pressure, which means they're not like walking A with 4 players, which is generally the only scenarios you really have to think about where they're like planting A that early. But Jabby's going to get into this spot. Oh my god. Okay. This round could be very, very different if he just got that kill. This round, oh my god, Stown. Is Stown actually going to win this? This round could have gone very, very differently if that kill goes to Jabby. Okay, never mind. But even if he, okay, even regardless of the player himself, if the op got picked up in CT, this round is like really, really hard for Falcons to win. But this is what Stown does in group stages. I mean, he does it on stage sometimes too. Spots both players out. They want to swing, but damn, Madden just... Well, I want to watch what's from Madden's POV. Contact. Oh, Stown really does get away just in time. He just barely gets around that corner. To me, like watching it from Stown's POV, it really does feel like Madden could get into position to actually trade there if he went fast enough. But he went pretty damn fast and just didn't. He didn't quite have time. All right, 1v1, free plant. Basically every option in the book to go for, other than reload. Apparently, that might have been a good idea, but this is why when you're dead, you should. It's always a good idea to call out how many bullets. Although, I don't know, he had plenty of time to reload. It just would have been nice if he reloaded earlier. But I mean, the thing is, like, I think he wanted to have his knife out a lot of the time when he was walking or like making his way over to B, so he was saving as much time as possible. Then he goes for the plant, and then he could reload right after, but maybe he's worried about someone peeking him. And if the guy goes from CT, then he's still got a chance to take a shot and reload anyways. I can see how that works out. All right, 3-3. This is, I believe this is Astralis' pick. They seem pretty solid when it comes to Ancient. Missed Molly. Is that a missed nade? Is that nade supposed to take out the smoke, or is it just supposed to delay? Either way, Snappy gets himself another kill. So Snappy, as far as like playing cheetahs going, does... When you think of Snappy, you don't necessarily think like a really good fragging player, but he actually does surprisingly well in that position compared to what I would expect. You got Magisk in Red Room, and Snappy wants to go for the lurk through, but he decides not to. And then on the other side, you have Sun Pius. I haven't looked at like the frequencies when it comes to Falcons. They're not a team that's generally on my list of teams that I like look into. Although maybe I might want to add them. Astralis is a team that I like to look at. Nice timing. I mean, that's a play that Bro has to go for every time here, right? He just has to go for this. It's just such an obvious play. He gets ahead of the molly. He takes a little bit of damage, but he hears the guy running back, and not an easy shot. But I think he hits that a good portion of the time. He just he's just expecting a further small fallback, so maybe Sun Pius did a pretty good job of kind of, even when you're falling back, your opponents know you're falling back. You can still kind of like, you can make it a little bit harder for them to exactly predict your precise angle. And man, Astralis, dude, how many ridiculously good players you got here, dog. Device with the jiggle one tap. Is Device using Snap Tap? Device, that jiggle one tap looked like Snap Tap to me. So apparently the talking counter guys talked about Snap Tap, and they said basically what I've said. I've said it on Twitter. I think I might have mentioned it in my last video. So I did one of these reviews, and it was so terrible I just didn't release it, and I mentioned Snap Tap. So it's hard for me to remember which one I talked about what in. But the guys on Talking Counter apparently came to the same conclusion I did, which is basically, it's obviously should be banned. I think it's very clear. It's scary that it's not banned. And in fact, they've reiterated their stance that null bind scripts, which are like, you know, Snap Tap, except using commands in the game, are illegal. So it's like, then why is the fucking keyboard legal? What? Anyways, this time they played off of mid once, and if you keep in mind strategically, like Astralis saw that Falcons played fully off of A on like an anti-force buy. So the tendency is going to be for Astralis to want to come back on a following round. And look, it's not like clear kind of like this happened, so this must happen kind of things. It's not like always, you know, A then B. It's not always as direct as that, right? It's not like, oh, well, we saw one thing, so we're going to do this other thing. It's more of a tendency thing. You kind of play the percentages. I mean, Sun Pius just has to land one of those shots, if we're being completely honest there. I mean, one of these shots has to be landed. If you're going to make your way out, you know, jump through the temple smoke to get out to the box here, you have to land one of these shots. Magis does get the trade, though, which is great. You're playing the percent. So what I was trying to say is that you're playing the percentages a bit in these sorts of scenarios where it's like, well, we know they had one round where they didn't play A when we were on like pistols. So we want to look to try and counter that, but that doesn't necessarily mean you go directly into that in the very next round, because oftentimes, you know, if Falcons know that, you know, they're going to go back into these sorts of plays, right? Like Falcons kind of knew that Astralis knew they played nobody on A that round, so they're going to play a little bit heavier towards A. So sometimes the response is the opposite of what you might expect the response to be, where it's like, well, and that's why I talk about like what does the team know that the other team did, right? Because let's say Astralis walked out A, saw nobody was there, and then walked back and went B, right? Then Falcons is like, well, they didn't know that we played nobody there, so we can play the same setup, right? And you'll see that can be problematic because sometimes you don't actually know what the opponent knows. However, you'll see a lot of teams do something like, I see this from Na'Vi. I believe it's not, I can't, either Spirit or Na'Vi. I see it where it's like they'll op ramp on nuke, and if that player isn't spotted, they op ramp the next round. It's like straight up, like they didn't spot it. Well, we did this for a reason. We're gonna do it again. And I mean, lots of teams do small things like that, but some teams, it really feels like they're like very, very clear on that. All right, so I want to look at this mid take just to see what the mid take actually looks like. When I play this in, I've been playing some Premier recently, and when I play this in Premier, man, does this mid control look awful. Like, I can't get people to throw like a flash or a molly. They're like, they have no idea what they're doing. Okay, so stare. This is a smoke that the T's throw from spawn, so you don't have to throw it from close and middle, and then you can keep your utility. Stare, just right click the flash and walk through, which is aggressive. I don't even think it got naded out, but it worked out. And then they can beat the rotate over to A. But in doing so, this is something you see Mongols do, and we saw G2 do this at IAM Dallas, in fact, in a game I reviewed, where they did it the opposite, though. They had two players walk out B looking for the kills. Snacks got both kills, and then you had Malbs headshot his teammate inside of A main. They're like sitting right here, and it's double donut from I think it was the team in the finals, and then Malbs just turns and he just headshots his teammate, so the rotate doesn't happen, and I think they lose that round. But in this case, the kill comes down on A, then the players walk out B. That's kind of what you're looking for, and so you have to keep in mind, like, that play can go kind of wrong, right? If Stare goes in and Stare dies, then you might not need to see a rotate, and then the B hit's could go very poorly, right? It can actually really can deteriorate very quickly. So you have to kind of pick and choose the situations you're going for that in, right? They have to be the appropriate situations where they had a guy coming from A main and a guy coming from Donut that importantly could basically beat the rotate. I think is what makes that a really, really effective play, that they could beat the rotate there so that they could almost guarantee not dying. So even if they didn't get a kill, they probably wouldn't die, so they'd maintain the pressure, you know? So it's down in a bit of a battle here towards ramp. And you've got Stare in middle. Stare, it might just be that Falcons don't typically play too aggressively on middle, because Stare is just so comfortable just walking out here, even with a Galil just taking these fights. But he is going to run into Sun Pius here. That's a nice kill. And you would expect kind of fairly quickly a reaction on A if A is happening, or fairly quickly a reaction on B. And the reaction on B is exactly what's happening. That angle on the box, by the way, is such a good angle. People do try and clear it, but still, I see people fail clear that quite a bit, where they like try and clear it, and that angle is just strong. But to some extent, the crispness on some of the shots from Falcons just isn't quite there. In that, like, that's a great spot to pick up too, but you need to get fairly quickly get the first kill, because Astralis is always really good, and almost always has been very good at trading, you know? So they're gonna have pretty good spacing, and if you don't get a quick kill on the first player, then the second guy's gonna be in perfect position to trade you relatively all of the time in those spots. So here, Bro's trying to throw a fake, but the hit is actually coming up towards B. And I think we just had another sick 1D. So this is one of the problems. So one of the things that... Where's there? Sorry. You have to be careful with... I mean, this is not an... Well, Madden's kind of in the open. So one of the things that people don't understand when they play against better and better opposition is that, like, you'll be having a bad game, and you're the immediate, like... The thought you have is, like, I'm having a bad game, I want to play passive, but then your opponents just pre-aim you, and then you have, like... If you ever play against, like, ECL level players, when they have deagles, dude, if you're not, like, messing with their crosshair placement, they will 1D you every round for the whole game. They will just destroy you insanely hard. All right, so Stairs got 2. Device has a good lurk, but I just can't imagine this lurk buys enough time. Like, surely there's not. Well, okay, if Stair gets 1... Nice damage. Now, it did buy exactly enough time. The bomb isn't planted for him, but he's still in good position to pick up the first one. He's got to push in on this one, and... Oh my god. How close was he, dude? What the hell? I thought for sure Dupree had that. I was saying and almost like just to keep it clear. Like, to keep it... That is so close. If he was in closer on the wall, he might actually have that, maybe? Could he have that? If he was just a little bit in closer? That's funny. Either way, I mean, I want to watch that back, because, like, what actually happened for this round to go? Because that's the second time Astralis has won with pistols, right? Or, no, Stown almost won. That wasn't really Falcons' fault. I mean, Stown just hit some ridiculous shots. You can't really blame that on them. Stair and the rest of Astralis, they get naded low instantly. Stown 23, Yabi 64, Stair 40. But then you have Madden in the middle of the open. And again, he just takes a couple too many bullets, I think, to kill the first player, which means he gets traded. And then you have what is like a fairly heavy A setup, because maybe because Astralis has been hitting A so often. And Sun Pius is just a little late on this rotate compared to what they'd want, right? Not that this is a mistake, but he's like moving away, and then he's trying to support middle because they have no info in middle. I don't know. If I'm anything, I'm not certain about this, like, this open. It seems a little odd. Where Madden was, it feels like where Madden was, he's expecting support. Like, he might not realize that Sun Pius was rotating off. That would actually make a lot of sense if Madden was expecting Sun Pius to be nearby. So he's in the open, and then he's, like, trying to move out of that position. He's trying to move out of that position to get into a better spot to hold solo. But as he's doing that, Sun Pius leaves, and they peek him at the same time. That would make a lot of sense to me, but... Could be wrong. Yeah. And Sun Pius pulls out his pistol and he tries to group up. That's probably where this round gets out of hand, is that one, where Sun Pius dies there. I think that's probably about the spot where this round gets a bit out of hand. Because Stair could be almost anywhere. They really don't know where Device is. Magisk has 9 health, so he's just going in for information, which is exactly what you want. And Snappy just needs to not get insta-gived, which he almost does, but he doesn't. And then... And Dupree goes to the defuse. And it's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. Yeah. Maybe some things could have been played a tiny bit differently there. So, 6-5. I mean, you're probably feeling pretty good about this if you're Astralis. And finally, you have what is like a very aggressive play on lane by Falcons. Snappy it looked like he was going for this one round. I can't remember. Maybe he did go for this one round, but maybe. I can't remember if he went for it or he canceled. I think he canceled. Oh my god. Oh no. Oh no. This isn't even an arena game. Does Yabi just run this? Takes a shot. Magisk isn't putting a ton of pressure. He doesn't have any utility. It would be nice if Sun Pius had a flash to throw for him, like throw on the left, but Sun Pius probably either doesn't have a flash or already threw his flashes, which would make a lot of sense if maybe they usually have an extra flash and he doesn't this time, which would explain some like some misunderstanding in the way things should be going, but it might just be normal. It would just be nice if Magisk had another flash, he could be a bit more aggressive, and if he was a bit more aggressive, he would have stopped that exact play that Yabi's going for there. And if he stops that play, then Snappy's play works perfectly, right? The problem is all of those things together leave that little gap for Yabi to go for that. And so it wouldn't surprise me if there's typically another flash there that allows that play to work. Okay, so Sunpius, he's going for the knife. He denied the knife, and this time he's going to get the knife and turn it into 1v2. So Yabi already cleared CT here, right? Let's see. So Yabi walks through. Do they know Yabi was here? That's an important question. So there's the molly out. There's the hidden. He probably didn't see him in the smoke. He gets the kill. So there's two spots Yabi can be. Yabi can either be in cave or he can be pushed through the short smoke. You would think if he was in cave, there's a pretty good chance that he would try and quickly swing out the trade before Sunpius could pull out the gun, right? That would be natural, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the case. So Sunpius is going to sit here. He's fully committed on the idea that Yabi's in cave because, and it makes sense, if Yabi's not in cave, why the fuck didn't he clear me? if Yabi didn't come out of cave, if Yabi came out of cave, why am I not dead? Good question. Good question. I understand exactly why you're thinking that. However, if he didn't come out of cave, he also probably could have, maybe even should have, because he mollied this off, right? He mollied this area off. He maybe should have even still, like, just checked that. But he probably assumed his teammate checked that, and then he walked through, because his teammate, I guess, could clear that also. But his teammate also has to worry about these angles, which makes it a little bit awkward. I'm not sure exactly who's supposed to clear this angle like that. It might actually be Yabi is supposed to clear this angle, like, just to check it quickly. Especially because, like, this is mollied off, so he doesn't have to worry about it. And because I could understand if he was here, like, posted, because he's worried about that to help. Either way, it looks like Sunpius is just completely committed on the idea that Yabi is in cave. Dupree seems to have a better idea that a different play is possible. So, yeah. And then Yabi can get that kill there. And just based on Sunpius' positioning, there's really only a few places Dupree could be. And mainly it's going to be ramp or cave. But if he was in cave, he's either actively clearing cave or it doesn't. It's a little odd, because if Dupree was in cave, then Sunpius would probably be looking at long, and like he'd probably be like here and like looking this way and looking this way maybe, or he'd just be staring at long or something like that. So basically based off that position, it seems like Dupree is he's either like here, in which case he could go cave, or he's on ramp. I think that's almost every time. And Yabi already walked through CT, so Dupree kind of can't be in CT, and I guess Dupree doesn't have to walk out here, but the problem is that I think he's just worried that if he wastes enough time that Yabi could be going around the other direction as well, so then it becomes really awkward. It's not like the greatest engagement ever, depending on comfort level. And I do feel like people do win that engagement a decent amount of the time coming out like that. So yeah, I think that really is on Sunpius just doesn't think that Yabi could be out of cave. But, I mean, if he doesn't think Yabi could be out of cave, he could still be in a slightly better position, couldn't he? Couldn't he just be, like, closer to the pillar or something? But I guess if you're close to the pillar, you could get spammed. I think he just has to understand that Yabi could be out of the cave. I think he's just thinking, which is, like, justifiable, absolutely. I think he's just thinking that, like, if he came out of cave, why didn't he clear me? And why didn't he trade me, right? It's kind of a specific timing, I think, because Yabi comes out of cave and he's in the smoke as his teammate dies, right? So it's like, if he was any slower, he just pivots and trades and kills Sunpius instantly, right? And if he was, faster, he could still be there. But the fact that he threw a molly from here, feel like it says, like, that he was here, but maybe he threw that molly and then backed up. I guess maybe you could think that. I don't know. Okay, so pistol, T-side. It's down with the dual elites. I don't think they're called dual Berettas. It was way cooler when they were called dual elites. You know, the dualies have, like, unreasonably good skins for the fact that they're not that popular. Like, obviously not talking about these ones, but they have unbelievably good skins for the fact, like, for how popular they are. Because they're not that popular, and they have unbelievably good skins. So this is a much more, like, searching strat from Astralis, as opposed to, I believe, or from Falcons, I mean, as opposed to, I believe, Astralis just kind of ran out A and happened to go into an empty bomb site. But both CT sides went for, like, a full-on B stack. And you can see how the retake ends up going. It's actually interesting because Astralis is a lot more passive, waiting for that aggression for Falcons into Temple, where on Astralis' side, I think their rotate was just a little bit faster. And so they were there before that rotate could come in, but they couldn't get out of Temple afterwards, right? And on the other side, getting into Temple and Temple control seems to be the part that's causing problems for Astralis. And here, they really want the bomb to explode. I don't know. Well, the bomb wasn't close enough, I guess. Like, in that situation, best case scenario, you let the bomb explode and you just toy with the guy for a little bit because you got the extra money and he's going to die to the bomb anyways. But the problem is, eventually that guy's going to realize what you're doing, and then you open up the opportunity for him to get multi-kills, and that can go very wrong for you. He's got USPs here. So one of the things, like, I don't do this enough, right? So one of, like, in my understanding, this is, I don't think this is like a rule. There's no, like, rule book for casting. But if you ever listen to, like, tier 1 casters, I mention this to people and they're like, oh yeah, that's true. Because if you ever listen to, like, tier 2 or tier 3 casting, I did a lot of casting, okay? So I have some credentials to, like, say this. If you look at a lot of, like, tier 3 casters, I don't want to say tier 2 because a lot of the tier 2 casters we have now are fucking insanely good. But if you look at a lot of, see, this is what I'm doing wrong. If you look at a lot of, like, tier 2 or tier 3 casters, they'll, like, cast, like, these anti-ecos, like, seriously. But if you look at, like, tier 1 casters, one of the things they do is they often, like, take these rounds as kind of a break. Not as a break, but, like, you give some breathing room so that you can kind of, like, reset for the audience so that when rounds are intense, that they feel intense, you know? And then, you know, if Astralis got, like, a couple kills there, then you start casting it seriously, you know? And that also allows you to talk about random bullshit, like I like to do, without losing important rounds like this, right? But I just do that anyways. Okay, sorry. I'm so bad at observing in CS2. I don't know. I need my minimap more zoomed in, maybe? It's just like I can't read the numbers sometimes. Maybe I'm just fucking old. Alright, so we're going to have a fast play by Yabi. Picks up both, and then at that point, with 2 players going there, there's a decent chance that something's happening up ramp. And not only that, but you have the CTs have full control of here. So Bro doesn't need to do anything cool here. He just needs to get one if he can. And he just had a really good flash for him, didn't he? Did Device throw a flash for him here? Yeah, that flash is clutch. Clutch flash. That's exactly what you need. That's the type of thing, like, that I really have always liked. Like, Astralis was good at throwing that type of like supporting utility in kind of hectic moments from, like, very early on when that core got together in, like, 2014 or whatever. It was, like, very early on. And that's what it's hard to copy. That's, like, as much as, like, teams are better now with utility overall, much better, right? One of the things that's hard to copy is it's hard to copy the use of that utility when you're not inside of a strat. Like, when the round is broken down into these odd situations and things are very hectic, it's hard to find the proper, you know, appropriate use of that utility consistently. Here, I think Yabi gets full blinded here, doesn't he? But Magisk, I think he just steps into the smoke and doesn't full clear it initially, and then he has to step through again, and Yabi's ready to get him. It's unfortunate. It's down with the spam through the smoke. It seems like whenever I spam a smoke, you know, my opponent is fucking Neo, okay, and he's just dodge, juke, jiving, and dodging, or whatever. And then when someone shoots at me through a smoke, I'm like, dude. It's crazy. I take every bullet, man. The bullets just like they're heat-seeking missiles, dude. Man, Falcons just getting picked apart in this round, dude. They're just losing every duel, everywhere. They're just, like, getting absolutely picked apart, like, one by one. Sunpius 1v3, nice timing from Stown. Sometimes you just have to take those duels and just accept that, like, you know, it's possible you get one tap, but the reality is that's not that likely. And then you have some pistols here for Falcons, so it should be pretty chill. In fact, you have Device picking up the MP9, and you have a kind of, I feel like, a more standard setup from Astralis on this, like, anti. Well, it's very different, right? This is an anti-eco, not an anti-force buy. Those are kind of fundamentally different rounds where you have to respect the ability for the Ts to win a lot more if you're expecting a force compared to, like, a Glock eco, you know? But I like the idea of an MP9. You can search things out. The thing with the MP9 is like, you don't have to play dummy aggressive. And that always kind of bothers me when someone gets an MP9 and they're like, well, I need to die now. And it's like, no, it's just you can get aggressive for information and you're not giving away a gun that's like gonna pick us apart, right? You can, if you drop an M4, you drop an AK, things can go downhill pretty quickly. You drop an MP9, I mean, MP9s are pretty damn good, but it's not an M4 or an AK, you know? So this feels like a much... I mean, you can... So this might end up giving up a bomb plant on A sometimes. However, there's going to be probably an amount of utility needed to throw to, like, prevent a donut player from, like, picking you off on site as well. It's not like a guaranteed bomb plant. What we saw from Falcons on the anti-force buys is they looked like they wanted to kind of give up mid. Although that wasn't universal. It might have been that they just... decided to do that for one round, or I saw them do it twice. It might have been that on one of those rounds they wanted to do it, and then on the other round it was just a standard setup and they didn't realize it was an eco. It's surprisingly easy to forget that it's an eco. Not because, like, I think every player on every pro team can probably almost definitely pretty easily tell you what the buy from the enemy team is going to be. Sometimes you just can't know, unless you're, like, literally ticking off through 3 mollies this round, right? Like, but... sometimes, like, if you're calling it, you know, you're making a call, you're so focused on the call, you don't even think, like, what is their economy right now, you know? So aggressive down ramp, but Sunpius is in a good position. They don't quite get mollied out here. Is a molly supposed to land there, or do they try and nade him? The molly doesn't quite molly, or take that out. Sunpius, oh, bro just doesn't hard clear that angle, so Sunpius gets the kill. Then you have a 5v3 immediately. And they could try and push through that smoke right away, or you can wait out the smoke. Both are pretty, you know, both definitely have merit. So they decide to wait out the smoke, but yeah, that doesn't work out too well. Nice little nade, and then this is going to decide the round, basically. If Madden died there, that round would have immediately gone the way of Astralis, but you still have a winnable round here, I mean, for Astralis right now. 2v3 from a 3v5. I don't think there was any massive mistakes made by Falcons, except for, like, that peak on ramp. Ooh, Device saw it. Oh my god, he got baited by the shadow. Oh my god. So he sees the shadow here. Does the pre see a shadow too? It gets kind of hectic going up ramp like that. Yeah, the Bree doesn't see the shadow, but it's, yeah, Device gets baited by the shadow. It gets kind of hectic going up ramp like that. They could have actually tried to cancel and just do whatever, but the problem is, you know, you're not necessarily expecting 4B, which is what happened. I believe Astralis had 4B at the start, and you're not necessarily expecting that, so you set yourself up into a pretty good spot to deal with, like, oh, if they have 3B, we can still lock down the rotate, prevent someone from getting into the bomb site, and then we can isolate the player that's in the bomb site, which is something that Astralis on their T side, I mentioned a couple times early on, like, you have 2 players trying to rotate in through long, but the player in sight is trapped, and they're trying to support that player, and they, you know, it can almost cost you when you try and support that player. You try to support that player, but he dies, right? Then it can actually, the round can kind of go sideways really easily. And I think that's what Falcons were trying to do there, but it was a 4B start. So here, another opening kill goes the way of Astralis on a gun round, naturally. And then Yabi just does this, I mean, it seems like Astralis is just comfortable going for some pretty aggressive solo plays, and they're just working out. Now, this is something they should be concerned about because, well, it's different guns, right? Stairs shot an M4A4. Yabi was close up, spamming into the smoke with an A1S. He's also done this a couple times prior, but I'm not sure if they knew he had done that beforehand, right? And this is a very risky play, but it would not surprise me at all. I feel like this is the type of thing where they kind of have an idea that when when Falcons go for this style of mid aggression, they have Snappy and Spawn throwing flashes, and they have 2 players here, and that Snappy generally goes back this way. I think that's what most teams do. I think that's how most teams do it. But a lot of the time, this second player, I think, is a little more passive. I'm trying to think, because I've seen a lot of teams doing this recently. I've looked at this specifically. I think in general, this is how most teams do it. Usually, this guy throwing flashes goes back B. But I think the second player is oftentimes more passive and not in the smoke like this, and it might be something where Magisk likes to go out with his teammate on plays like this, and that leaves a gap behind where Magisk generally isn't, and you can go for this type of lurk around. That might be the idea. Or maybe it's just a play where you had a feeling that it was a good idea. Regardless, Astralis is just so comfortable going for these aggressive plays, and I think they're just thinking, like, we're just better individually, so So we're going to make some individually aggressive plays when we see timings, and once the rounds break down and once the rounds get really chaotic, I think that's where Falcons seem to have their most issues in general. I haven't done I haven't watched a lot of like Falcons games specifically, but if the games I've seen them in, that does really seem to be where they really struggle, right? Like, I think they have reasonably good individual players. Like, Dupree's back, he's on a tear. Sunpius is pretty good. Madden's pretty good. Magisk isn't old Magisk, but he's still a good player, right? But when rounds break down, it seems like I feel like it kind of gets exposed a little bit how they're sometimes just on completely different pages. But we have Astralis 3v3. And here's the thing. I think the thing is that Falcons don't know that Stair is low, so there's no reason to expect this style of stack. But most you should really expect on B in this situation is 2. Because why would you have a 3B stack? We could go A, right? Unless there's maybe there's some anti-strat where like Falcons in these types of situations always go B. But I think definitely might be that. But even if you knew that, if Stair's got 100 health, he's probably just staying A, or maybe he goes mid and like spots mid or something. I don't know if he stacks B if he's got 100 health, right? Maybe, who knows? But I feel like, but because Falcons don't know he's lit, and they might not know the utility situation, they're probably not expecting 3B. So I'm guessing they're probably going to get caught off guard by this. So Snappy picks up 1. He's going to throw the smoke. They're worried about that T-spawn flank because Stair, if he had 100 health, could have like pivoted from donut and pushed A main. Like, that's a play you might see sometimes. Then Madden killed by device. And Snappy. Well, at this point, you know that someone could have rotated in, so you definitely have to be worried about that. But you're thinking he might have rotated off because there was a bit of a delay. But he's just got to go for a bit of a risky gamble play there, I think. Doesn't have much choice. All right, is this like the first timeout? First terrorist timeout? And you come out of the timeout with a fast mid play. All right, fair enough. You got the smoke helping things out. Dupree out first. He took a lot of damage from that nade, but that wasn't an unwinnable gunfight. But that's exactly what you want to do if you're Astralis with the way they're controlling mid on this exact round. Astralis is trying to go for like a semi-aggress. They're trying to, if Falcons don't contest mid, or if they don't do like a hard contest mid, they're going to be pretty happy taking full mid control. And if they do, they're going to be pretty happy just backing up and going from there. I mean, I don't even think they were necessarily going for full mid control. They had Stairs staying in red. But yeah, Dupree couldn't get the kill. And then Stairs just in a good spot, and Mad just, I think Stairs just in a good off angle here. Mad just comes out, thinks to clear that angle. Just doesn't quite see him. I think he's even on his screen, but he just doesn't quite see him at the exact right timing. So then you've got a 4v3, and as long as Stair can get one more, or someone else can get a kill, Device gets a kill as Stair is still alive. That's the best case scenario. I think Stair was worried about moving back into Donut because he was worried about getting pinched there, but I don't think Madden actually had a chance to pinch him. He was a little too far away. And 1v3 should be pretty much over. 11-9. So this is, yeah. So Stair threw some utility and then backed up. So you again, but this time you have Falcons not really contesting in middle. And this time Stair threw that utility and then pivoted back over to A, which is a little more commonly seen. Do I want to say that? I don't think that's actually all that common. It really depends on what team you're looking at. Like a lot of teams are really liking to have that, have the red room player be a rifler that can spam through the smoke a little bit more easily if they're getting smoked off, which is great. They can also pivot over to A really, really effectively. And then you can kind of unchain your opper. So your opper has lots of options instead of trying to open up mid early. I actually really, I see like Complexity do that. I think it's really effective. I actually really, honestly kind of prefer that. And then sometimes you want to be going for these like hyper aggressive, like full contests in middle, which is great. And I think that like the ability of your mid players really changes a lot, right? Can you contest in mid when they go for a contest, when they're trying to fight back? Like, can you win with only 2 players there? Like, how consistently can you win? In terms of how often do you need a third stack in middle to actually help control mid? Because I mean, Ancient with mid, I think it's kind of like Inferno with B, right? Not B, Banana, right? Lane, of course, is important as well. I like this double up. You got Sound in the corner. Device is just opping it. And then Falcons want to be rotating back into A, but you kind of need to push people off of Cheetah to do that. I think if you don't push people off of Cheetah, it's a little too easy for the CTs to get information as to what you're going for and not play kind of honest on this, like, rotate back off. And then Yabi looks like he just pulls out a nade at the wrong time, right? So hold on. Stairs here. Stair rotates off. Yeah, so really well timed by Falcons. They, you know, they get the kill on Cheetah, and then they immediately rotate over. Yabi just pulls out a nade at the wrong time, but still turns it into a kill. 3v3. Stairs here in pretty decent time. Man, if you want me to be honest, man, it just feels like first half I think Astralis did have some really good ideas and like some of the plays they were making, and second half I think they have some good ideas too, but really it just feels like Astralis is just the better individual team, like more so than anything else. Dupree's fucking nutty though, like if we're being honest, Dupree's pretty nutty. But you know who's nutty also is Device. Okay, it's Device. I don't know. I like some of what Astralis was doing, but I also like some of what Falcons was doing. I think, again, it really feels like a situation where Falcons just seem to kind of struggle when the rounds start to break down, and it's easy for rounds to start to break down when you have Astralis with, like, basically a super team, right? You have Astralis in those situations where they can kind of go for they can find some timings where they're like, okay, I think there's an opening here. They can make those plays work. Then they get the kills. They even get traded. But then you put yourself in a really chaotic situation, and Astralis played out of those so much better than Falcons was.